Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Generally Irritable, where in every episode you could hear the sounds of children being beaten up in the background. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's right. We live in a dojo. My husband is a fight choreographer. There is literally class going on behind me. So if you hear screaming, that's what it is. That's what it is. And class ends in like 15 minutes. So I'm super excited today to have on Kali Fontanilla, formerly an educator in California, now living in the free state of Florida. She is someone that Lord Reddick and I met last year at America Fest, and we got to see her again this year. We've been following her on Instagram. We've been following her story this year, and getting to see her again at AmFest this year was an absolute joy. A lot of times, we as spectators, and I'm going to include myself in this, right? Because just because I commentate on the news doesn't mean I don't also watch and consume it, right? And we see these people on YouTube, on Instagram, on social media, or on TV, and we just we think they make it look easy, right? They're out there, they're fighting the fight, they're being the tip of the spear, and we kind of just get to sit back in our couches and in our comfy living rooms and take for granted the work that they're doing. And going to America Fest, you just really see the heart and soul of the conservative movement. These are not, they're not the Tucker Carlsons that you see out there. These are normal, average Americans who just got tired of the crap, right? Kali didn't grow up in a political family where they were like, oh, we're going to go save the world. I mean, maybe she did, but I'm pretty sure she grew up like most normal folks. And she just got to the point where she'd had enough and she decided to step up and fight. And so I just love her story. I love the heart that she has and the courage, because it's so easy to sit and complain, you guys. How many of you out there watching? I'm guilting and shaming you right now. I know I'm doing it. I don't care. Deal with it. How many of you are not participating? You're not doing anything. And you just kind of go, oh, well, Kali's doing it. Oh, Erica's doing it. No, everybody needs to do something. And so, that's my preaching for the week, you guys. That's my lecture. Go out and do something. Like Kali went out and did something. So without further ado, Kali Fontanilla joining us.
Hello.
Hello. Oh my goodness. Okay, so now I know your viewers are going to be joining us, but my viewers may not be as familiar with your story.
I don't think my viewers are familiar with my story either, because I have not really shared it. All they know is my satire and my shorts and my rants, but they don't know my story.
You have some really good characters that you do.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's an escape for me. I love doing the characters because I don't know. It's not me, It's kind of like I get to just be on the outside looking in when I'm a character, and it's just fun for me. And I come from a goofball family and a family of musicians and actors, and so
nice
to be able to kind of touch into that side of myself has been really fun. So that's why I do the characters.
Well, I think comedy is the best way to communicate difficult information, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Right? We can sit there, right? Like me being like, oh, you guys are a bunch of losers if you're not doing anything. That doesn't normally like motivate people to go out and do stuff. They normally feel offended by that kind of thing. But if we can crack jokes, if we can be light about it, if we can make it fun and not like a total slog, like who wants to be around people who are complaining, angry, upset, sad all the time?
Oh, totally. And yeah, I've got some pushback from the satire, like, oh, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing, or it's not Christian or something like that. And I always remind people of Elijah, when Elijah was when they were doing the fire from heaven test, and the pagans were like trying to call on their pagan gods, and Elijah was like, "Are your pagan gods on the toilet? Because they're not listening." And I'm like, Elijah made
smack talk.
such a good smack talking joke.
So much smack talk. I hate that nonsense about, oh, that's not Christian. Well, what is Christian? What does it mean to be Christian? Like, how are you supposed to treat people who are calling for the medical castration of children? How are you supposed to treat people who think that you don't have the right, you don't have autonomy over your own body? Like, they want to
silence is what got us here. Not doing anything and just going, we need to be nice and not do anything is now why we're in clown world all the time. And when people think my satire videos are real, even though I'm saying the most ridiculous things ever.
You're joking.
Because we're in clown world.
Oh my God. See, that's the thing, is you can't tell the difference between truth and fiction anymore.
Even if I put a big giant satire sign and I say in the caption it's satire, people are still like, wow, who is this crazy person? Because they've seen so many of these types of videos. Libs of TikTok. I mean, every single day there's a new crazy. It's almost like being in the loony bin, and it's exhausting.
When Babylon Bee is getting fact checked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you guys, it is literally a satire site, and you're fact checking them?
Yeah, seriously.
Oh my God. Oh, your video though the other day, the lady who was like, "We're losing."
Oh yeah.
You know, that video that went viral like 2 years ago or whatever it was.
Yes.
And you posted your like lip syncing to it. I was like, oh my God, this is so stupid. It's so, people are so outrageous these days.
Yeah.
I just feel like if Trump is a Nazi, then everyone is a Nazi, and no one is a Nazi. Like, Jews are Nazis now. And then, but like, Nazis are okay. I don't even, when you say clown world, like, I feel like we're there.
Well, this last year's been really hard for me, actually. And I just want to give a shout out to Right Wing Angels on here right now. If you follow him on Instagram, his account is so important because he shares a lot of the news that doesn't make the mainstream news about what's going on in this country. So I just want to shout out to him.
Right Winged Angel, put a link to your channel in the chat.
And then, this last, and his account is a hard one to follow because, again, there's all these stories that we're not seeing about what's going on in this country, and it's heavy. Like, seeing all of the insanity, seeing our young people that are just struggling, seeing these older men who are just disgusting going into women's bathrooms, and just our president right now, it's just heavy. Yeah. And this last year has been hard for me because I've been internalizing a lot, like taking it on myself. And that is not a good thing to do.
No, it's very easy. I found when I was campaigning, I started to like feel like I had to save people.
Yes.
Like it was my job to save everyone. And that is a weight that no human being is capable of carrying. Right?
This world, like it's beyond repair. We need a supernatural repair. We cannot, but we do have a part to play, and we do have to make sure that we are balanced, though. And that's where I was getting really unbalanced this last year. And this is not something I asked for. Having a following, I wanted to just be a public school teacher for the rest of my life. If people don't know my story, I'm a former public school teacher of 15 years. I loved what I did. Get me in a room full of middle school kids, and that's where I belong. And
so back up a little bit. So you were a public school teacher in California. What part of California?
So I taught in majority of my career in Salinas, California, which is basically where everyone gets their strawberries, where everyone gets their lettuce.
If California
Central
map Central. Okay, remember that
Central
map that said California was going to like split into three states. Excuse me.
Garlic.
So Central California.
Garlic is. We have a comment. Yeah. So I taught majority English learners and students that were behind in their reading. So I
Okay.
firsthand saw the failings of our educational system.
Wow.
Because I
Oh
would
my
get
gosh.
I would get 7th and 8th graders, and then I eventually went to high school. I'd get 9th graders that didn't know how to decode, never had a teacher sit down and read with them, and I'd help them learn how to read in a year. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Well, we actually did a few podcasts recently talking about, you know, the reading curriculum went from phonic based to like, oh my God, I'm trying to
Whole
remember.
word.
Yeah, like not teaching kids how to sound out
Yeah, no
words.
decoding. They do whole word. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I was like, that sounds like a recipe for making people stupid.
Yeah. And you know, that works for a certain type of child. Maybe 10% of children do well. It's called whole word, where they just learn the
Okay.
whole word and it's more visuals and memory. But decoding is the way to go because it gives them confidence. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because then what happens if you grow up and you're reading something and it's got all this like, you know, lots of vowels and consonants and you have to sound it out.
Yeah, exactly. And also the English language isn't consistent enough for that because you're supposed to use the learning of other words to get you to understand new words that you see. But English is so all over the place.
I mean, there, and there.
Yeah.
Were. What?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you were an English teacher.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So how long were you a teacher in California?
I taught for 15 years. That was my career. I have a master's in education. I have 2 teaching credentials, actually 3. I have 1 in dance, I have 1 in English, and I have a elementary credential as well. And I was always like my department chair. My students always did really well. I loved what I did. I was the teacher that would come, one of the first teachers to come in the morning. I always left when the bell rang, though. I never stayed after school. I like to get it all done. But and I just really loved what I did. But then 2020 happened, and I started seeing the writing on the wall about 2 years before. It was pretty much during Trump.
Yeah.
And our schools just became these massively political environments. And I'm not welcome anymore as a teacher in California. My views are not welcome. It's
Well,
becoming.
and that's. Did you start out as a like, have you always been conservative leaning, or was there like a wake up for you that happened?
Yes, I was originally Democrat, left leaning. My whole family's pretty much left leaning. But the first time I voted for Gore, and I thought that Bush stole the election. Do you remember that?
Yes.
You thought Bush stole the hanging chads in Florida?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My first vote for president was Bill Clinton. So
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
not any better.
Yeah. So my first vote was for Gore. I just voted for anyone who had a D next to their name because I thought that was the right thing to do. I thought Democrats were for Black people. I thought Democrats were the ones for the poor, and I was raised poor. My mom was on all of the aids that you can get. And so I was like, Democrat is the way to go, and Republicans are just a bunch of racists, and you can't. And that's the view I had for a long time until Obama. And then I was very excited about Obama because at the time, early 20s, you think the world you think America is oppressive. And I look back and I'm like, can we go back to that time, early 2000s? That was great. Now America is oppressive. The left is oppressive. They're turning this place into like the last 3 years. I'm sorry, but I've felt a little oppressed being forced to wear a mask. All right. Like, if you want to talk about oppression, force people getting fired for not getting a vaccine. That's oppression. But
I mean,
anyway,
literally threatening people's livelihoods. This is my thing. When they want to call Republicans fascists and all the other stuff, I'm like, wait, who was calling for people to lose their jobs?
Yes.
Who was saying you shouldn't get medical treatment if you haven't taken the forced medical care that they were trying to force up? You know what I mean? Like, who is oppressing who here?
Yeah,
who
exactly.
Who is the fascist?
Yeah, exactly. So it was during Obama. I was very excited to vote for him. I've even banged pots and pans when he won. At the time I was living in Santa Cruz. We went downtown. There was like parades for him. It was embarrassing now that I think about it. There was like a whole parade downtown because we were like, yay, Obama. And then I was
Wait, what were you like?
Yeah, yay, Obama. And then the first thing he did was bail out the banks. And I remember he had some sort of excuse for that.
Oh my God. Oh, don't
and I
even.
was,
Oh
yeah.
my God. I can't.
And I was like, wait a second here. So, and he was like, I have to do it. I have to give these banks.
Have to. We did a bunch of stuff and screwed everybody over.
And then these
and
banks,
they're still going to.
Yeah. And then these banks just disappeared. Like I was what was the bank? It was Washington Mutual. Is that not around anymore? It was some sort of bank just gone after that.
Yeah.
Because, whoever was in cahoots with that administration got to stay alive. And then the rest of them were gone. And then I liked my bank
familiar?
at the time. Yes. And so first was bailing out the banks. And then came, he was against, I really didn't like what happened during 9/11, which was the Patriot Act. Remember how we were all against the Patriot Act?
Dude, I swear to God, it was like, if you've been alive for longer than 5 minutes and you still trust the government, I can't for the life of me figure those people out. I mean, they literally gave themselves permission to spy on us. They gave themselves permission to take our money to bail out rich people. Like, nope, I remember that. Oh, good God, get me started.
Incident-based legislation. We have to be so careful about that, because if there's some sort of incident that can get people to sign up to get rid of their rights, to give away their rights, to give away their freedoms, they're going to keep having these incidents. There's an incentive to have incidents. So
speaking of which,
yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Nikki Haley. What do you think about Nikki Haley saying that everyone online should have to be verified with their government name?
No. I mean, I don't think anyone likes her. I don't know who's funding her. I haven't met a single person be like, good, yeah, Nikki Haley. Who likes Nikki Haley? I don't know how she's still but that's just the powers that be, that someone's funding her. And
anyway.
Go ahead. There's Patriot Act, and Obama said he was going to reverse it. Then he actually passed the National Defense Security Act, I think is what it was called. And it was worse than the Patriot Act.
Yes.
It took away more of our freedoms. And I was like, hold up. This man said he was going to exactly. I don't like the facade. I don't want the facade. That's why I liked Trump, because at least Trump, what you see is what you get, right? So the facade and then on top of that, Common Core, which was a federal power grab.
Oh, good golly.
Yes.
Miss Molly.
Uh-huh.
Every teacher that I know has said that stuff, like No Child Left Behind, all that stuff is like the worst stuff to ever happen to education.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, especially for math. The Common Core math is weird, and it made it so that parents could no longer help their children because they're teaching them a whole different way to do long division. and it just was a federal power grab. Every states are supposed to control their education of the kids in their state. And what it was is the federal government coming in and stepping in and saying, no, we're going to do these federal standards, these common standards across. And guess who funded that? Bill Gates. That was funded by Bill Gates. $200 billion to get that. Yeah. I'm actually writing a blog post about that, and it should be done pretty soon in the next month or so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's funded by Bill Gates. And it is to dumb down. They have a depopulation agenda. And part of it is just getting people to be stupid enough to sign up for all the stuff that they're doing to kill us.
Well, and that's what is so funny. They're not hiding the ball. I don't know why we keep getting called conspiracy theorists and things like that when they write books about it. They go on tour. They talk about it from the podium. It's not hidden or secret.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so crazy to me. Oh, Greg says he's a 64 white male. He's very oppressed. Oh, yep. And somebody else, I completely feel like she's being propped up talking about Nikki. See, that's the thing. Have not met a Nikki Haley fan yet.
No,
have not.
They don't exist.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So yeah, it was during Obama. And then the other thing he did was he cut food stamps. And I was a Democrat at the time, and he did the largest food stamp cut of any president of my lifetime. Really? And I was like, I thought he was supposed to be for the people. And I think of all things, food stamps, okay, we're one of the greatest countries on earth. Let's make sure people are fed, right? I'm not really into all the checks, but like food stamps, I'm not necessarily against or for that program. People need to be fed. And so that was like, wait a second. So he's supposed to be for the poor, and he did the largest food stamp cut I've seen in my lifetime.
That's surprising.
And I'm like, the wool is being pulled over my eyes. And then all his wars, his droning, and so I didn't vote for him second term. I was like, I don't like being deceived. This guy deceived me. And then on top of it, his Obamacare, which was an absolute disaster, and forcing people, I was in my early 20s at the time, forcing me to buy health insurance or else I would get fined. I was like, what is this? This isn't a solution.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
No. Well, and that's why I lost my affordable health care because of Obamacare. I had health insurance that I could afford.
Yeah.
And I was young like you, so I didn't need like a super lot of coverage. I needed whatever. I think I paid like a couple $100 a month. And once Obamacare passed, it went to over $400 a month.
Yeah, because what he did is he forced all of the insurance companies to no longer make the choice about who they want to insure. And because of that, all of our premiums went up.
And this is what people don't understand. It's not insurance anymore. Insurance is supposed to be there in the case of emergencies, not for regular maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. And I think our healthcare system is really messed up, but socialized medicine is not the solution. But I do think that our healthcare system has a lot of issues. So during that time,
we're talking about education. Get me started on the medical community. Get me started. Okay.
I left the left. Second term Obama, did not vote for him. Okay. But if you remember, during that time, the Republican candidates were it was Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney was going against. So here's the thing. At the time, I was like, both sides are messed up. And there's a lot of truth in that. I will say that the average Republican voter is a better person than the average Democrat, though. The voters, on the other hand, are a whole nother story. In fact, that's proven. Republicans donate more to the average Republican voter, give more blood. They donate more to charity. They're just better people. So I love the people, but the politicians, I'm still a little bit, most of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, and I know as a person who has an accounting practice and I see the spending habits of my clients, I can tell you firsthand that the conservative clients are significantly more generous than the liberal ones. Yeah.
And that's just facts, but people don't want to face it. I think liberals think they're a good person by voting. They think that they vote for Biden, which means that they did their part, right? And that's how they don't want to actually do any work to help this country. They just want to vote and have the politicians solve everything, which I think is not good. Our country was founded on the people making this country great, not the politicians.
That's right.
And we don't actually want the politicians to solve all our problems because they don't do a good job.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
And speaking of terrible, Greg, I don't want you to think I was making fun of you. He made a sad face. Greg, I wasn't making fun of you. You literally are. White males are literally being oppressed.
Yes.
It's very bad. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing because you're correct. So I just want to make sure his sad face, he knows that I wasn't laughing at you, sir. I was laughing with you. It's true. They are so awful to men these days.
And when you look around, I've been doing a lot. I go on a lot of walks in my area, and I look around and I just see all of the men doing so much hard labor. I mean, every time I go to my husband and I, we have a running joke. Every time we go to like a construction site, I'm like, oh, that was definitely built by all women. And like a bridge that we go over, this big old cement bridge that was like an amazing feat of engineering and hard labor, right? I'm like, oh yeah, definitely built by a bunch of trans women. No, this was built by men. And yes, we have these different roles, but we need to give men the respect that they deserve because they literally built this country on their backs. Like
this is what I'm saying.
Yes.
This is what I'm saying. Okay, so you're teaching. You get red pilled, right? And then 2020 happens.
So yeah, I vote for Trump because I can't stand Hillary. So when I voted for Trump,
You did the worst thing you could do.
yes, and I was in California, so I was like, at least this is one less vote for Hillary. I knew and I also did not think that Trump was going to win. I genuinely thought that they chose him to be on the ballot so that Hillary could win because she was such an unpopular candidate that they needed someone ridiculous to be on the ballot to, make sure that she wins. And she had this confidence, like, I'm going to win, right? There was this like cocky confidence, like, I'm going to be the first female president.
It was presumed.
Yes.
Everybody just presumed that it was going to be her. And I'm like, why? No one likes her. Her husband was a freaking philanderer.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen, you guys, in public, all of the stories that have come out about how corrupt your foundation is. Like,
oh yeah. And that was really, the Clintons are so gross. And they're so protected. And that hurts my heart that these evil people are so protected. I cannot wait. And I know I am not the judge, and I know God is going to reveal all and expose all. I just can't wait for that day. I'm like, can we please let these people be exposed? Can we please, I'm just tired of them running around. But that's, in Psalms, it talks about that all the time. The wicked they have their day. They're having their day right now. Enjoy your day because this is it.
Well, and that's why Christians, when people say, oh, that's not very Christian, you know what? No, Christians need to be standing up, being courageous, calling a spade, calling evil, and remembering that we have been given dominion over this earth. Like,
yes,
we Christians particularly, I mean, everybody has, whatever, but like Jesus defeated the enemy.
Yes.
And we have dominion here. If people only acted like it, we would have not nearly the problems that we have today.
Exactly.
Oh, get me preaching. Okay. So you did the unthinkable. You're a deplorable. That's what I heard you say. You voted for Trump. And let me guess, the day after the election, your school took the day off for crying sessions.
I brought my students donuts. They were so scared because because I had taught English learners. Most of my students were from Mexico and they thought they were all going to be deported.
No.
And so I was like, you guys, I brought you guys donuts because I know how hard it is that Trump won. They didn't know who I voted for. They asked me who I voted for. And I said, I'm not going to tell you. But I had them, I think my students kind of had a clue that I wasn't a super leftist because my district was one of the first to adopt policies to protect the trans students and not expose their transitioning at school to parents. So this was 4 years ago. I made a video 3 years ago talking about it, but 4 years ago, we had a teacher call home there was a girl that had transitioned to a male. And the teacher called home with the male name. And this is a Spanish speaking parent. Okay. And she calls the teacher. I mean, the teacher's calling the parent and saying the new male name. And the parent didn't recognize the child and said, I don't know who you're talking about. We don't have a Billy or whatever. I don't know what name the girl was using as her boy name at school. And because of that incident, my district adopted a policy to hide the gender change from parents. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I shared about this 3 years ago and I had people say, oh, that's not happening. Or, oh, you're lying about it. And now it's standard policy.
Now it's just open.
Yes. And that's how fast things are moving. That's how fast things are moving. We're now like, oh yeah, that's happening everywhere. When 3 years ago, that was, whoa, I can't believe it's happening. It was one of my first real big viral moments on YouTube. Was sharing about this. And that was like only a year ago I posted the video, but it was a video I'd made 2 years ago. It was an old video that I just posted. And so it just shows how quickly things are getting just out of hand.
Vermont passed a law last year that you could bring your children to Vermont. So you can kidnap your children and bring them to Vermont to get gender transformation, whatever. And the state of Vermont will not comply with out-of-state law enforcement agencies to get the child back.
Wow.
They literally legalized child kidnapping and mutilation. Like when you say how fast. I mean, it literally, not that long ago, all these things were conspiracy theories.
And this is coming from the left, who says gender is a social construct. So if it's just a social construct, why are you guys doing all this like underground railroad to give kids hormones so that they can feel like their gender if it's just a social construct? Like,
you hold on. Wow. That is an excellent question. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that.
I've heard other people say it. I just said it in a very teacher way.
Oh my God. No, but that's so true. Like, again, like so if gender is a social construct, right? And women don't naturally gravitate towards one thing and men toward another or whatever.
Then why are we
then why do we have to cut off body parts?
Yes, exactly.
And take hormones.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Oh my God. Do people's heads explode when you ask them that? If they're like a proponent of this stuff?
I avoid talking to leftists. I used to debate them. I used to debate leftists.
I saw you. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't do it anymore. It's just it's too stressful. And I don't have the patience. I want to go to the low-hanging fruit. I want to go to the people that are ready to learn the truth, that want the truth, that want to get excited to fight for this country. I'm not trying to get these people out of their mud pits.
Yeah.
You know,
I think they're too far.
Yes, they need you guys come to Jesus moment.
You guys are so far off the rails, like that there may not be any, like I may not be able to persuade you, but if you're like a reasonably normal human being who can like do math, you can usually talk to those people and have them kind of at least have an understanding, you know, or come to some kind of a, like, you may not agree on the solution or whatever, but you can at least, I mean, I swear, you know, you said earlier, like the Republican Party isn't any better than the Democrat Party necessarily. And I was talking to somebody earlier and I said, you know, I think if I had to guess, I would say like 80% of the country is somewhere in the middle, independent, libertarian type minded people. And then it's just like 10% that's like really hard on either side.
Yeah.
And everyone in the middle is like, can the first person to not be a psycho, I'll vote for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what the Republican Party has going for them, though, is the voters. The voters are demanding accountability from their politicians now. They are saying, no, you can't just sit around and let these leftists take over. We will vote you out and we'll bring someone in that will do what we want, that will pass laws that make it, you know, illegal to give children puberty blockers or whatever. And that's been happening across the nation. The problem is, will our vote count? Because now they're doing tricky things to make it so that we can't. Right now they're working on taking Trump off the ballot.
Oh, well, and isn't it somewhere trying to take Biden off the ballot?
Yes, Florida.
Oh,
and that's goodness. If they are going to truly do that, then we need to fight fire with fire and do the same thing. But the problem is they're going to take Trump off of the swing states. We won't be able to win in those. Any Democrat controlled state, we're not able to do that. So we're talking Colorado, Arizona. That's why Arizona was so important.
Georgia.
The Kari Lake election was so important for Kari Lake to win, which she did, and she didn't because something happened, all this shenanigans again, and that's a control over swing states.
Yeah,
because the swing states decide who wins.
I mean, and that's the thing is I'm really curious to see how the precinct map is going to look this year because so many people have moved, right? You have, right? You left California. I left Vermont. I mean, you hear it all over the place. Everybody is leaving these Democrat-controlled states in droves. They're leaving Democrat-controlled cities because they're violent and full of crime that isn't being prosecuted anymore. And so I kind of like, I feel like the red states are going to get redder, the blue states are going to get bluer, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen in those swing states.
Well, if they allow illegals to vote, which they're trying to do, New York City just passed a law that they can vote in local elections. So Vermont, New York City illegal, then we're done. we're done. And that's really the true fight right now. That's part of the reason why they hated Trump so much, is he really was trying to solve what's happening in our borders, because they're trying to water down America. They want a globalist government. And you have to not have, you can't have these shining stars if you have you got to take out these shining stars to have a globalist worldwide government. And so they have to water down this country with a bunch of illegals, and then we lose who we are.
Right. Yeah. You got to change the culture.
Yeah.
You got to change the culture. So what happened after they passed that policy that you now have to lie to parents?
So luckily I was somewhat protected from that, because I taught the English learners. So I never really had a student that was, I had very traditional kids, traditional students. And I also didn't pry that much into their personal life. I did my job as a teacher. I was a very good teacher. I treated all my students like they were special, like they were smart, but I didn't need to know who they were with or if they were questioning their gender. That was not something for me. That's something for their counselors, really. Teachers are not trained. If there's a child that's questioning their gender, that's a huge, huge life decision to say, you know what? I'm no longer a girl. I'm now a boy. And these teachers are trying to take it on as their like gender counselors. None of them are trained on that.
Psychologist,
exactly,
or a psychiatrist, or
yes, and
or
these teachers,
whatever.
And these teachers are making the call on whether or not these kids are genuine or not, too. You know, I mean, there's kids that are doing it for attention. There's kids that are doing it because they have issues with their, with their father, and they don't want to be a girl anymore because of things that happened to them.
Oh my gosh, Kali,
Yes.
When I started my period, when I was like 12 or whatever it was, I was so upset. And I remember being very angry about it and being like, this is lame. This is annoying. How come boys don't have to deal with this?
Yes.
I just remember like being really mad about it at first.
Yes.
And imagine if that if I had been born and been raised today, they would have tried to trans me.
Yeah.
I was a tomboy.
Tomboy.
I was a tomboy. I played with mostly boys because that was who I grew up around. I played with Tonka trucks and G.I. Joes more than dolls. Like, they literally would have tried to trans me.
Yes. Yes. And that's the thing, is we need to normalize the fact that not all girls are girly, not all boys are super manly. And we're still going back to this view that
binary. Oh my God. Exactly. And then so like, if you like pink, then you must be a girl.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, what? Like, why can't boys just like things?
Well, they're usually artistic. They're just artistic, like a David Bowie type or something,
Oh my God.
And
one of my favorite makeup people to watch on social media, I'm just going to cop to this, Johnny Ross. It's a dude. He does such good tutorials with the makeup, and he's like, and for aging skin. He's my favorite makeup influencer to watch. And he doesn't think he's a woman.
Yeah.
He's just gay. He's just a normal gay dude.
And then on top of it, the people that are outside of it, if we don't go along with it, we're called bigots. We're called transphobes. We're basically blamed for death. You know how many times I've had these leftists tell me, you're the reason why transing or unaliving. That's what they always say, unaliving. And I'm just like, no, it's because they're really mentally disturbed and they don't love themselves. Imagine if you're such especially as teenagers. Oh my gosh. First of all, teenagers in and of themselves have a hard time.
Oh my God.
During the pandemic, 60% of teenagers had suicidal ideation. We have our teenagers have mental health issues right now. And that's on top of the fact that teenagers have mental health issues in general, because hormones make you crazy. Hormones going on. Yeah. I mean, when you're not balanced hormonally, you're a different person. And it's really important to take care of your health. And that's what we should be teaching our young people. Not when you look at, there's actually a clinic in Florida that hasn't been shut down yet. So DeSantis is not doing his job, even though he's an okay governor. He stopped doing his job once he started running. But there's a trans clinic in Florida that is basically giving girls double mastectomies. And they're as young as 14-year-olds. And you can go onto the website and you look, and it has before and afters, which is so heartbreaking. But the girls that are getting this done to them, most of them are overweight. Most of them have this look on their face like they're just, I know that depressed teen look. I know it. I've worked with teenagers my whole life, and I was one of them. And I'm just like, if these girls were taught to love themselves, to exercise, to eat right, to love their bodies, instead of trying to go this whole route where they think they're going to get some sort of thrill from cutting off their breasts and a high from testosterone, which does give them a high, because testosterone is what makes the world go round. It does. Men have like 100 times testosterone as women. And so it's what makes the world. So they get this, all of this stuff pumped in them, and they feel better because they're getting this testosterone running from them. But really, they need to learn how to love themselves as the way God made them, and they wouldn't be cutting off their breasts. And it's so sad that they're doing this. It's butchering children, cutting off healthy organs. You know how many women have had breast cancer and go through so much trauma from having their breasts cut off, yet now we're cutting off the healthy organs of young children, of young girls.
Outrageous.
This has to be stopped. Yeah.
I just want to make sure. So you got a super chat. Id Pro Quo says, I think my name is existentialist. I don't know what that means. Id Pro Quo. Tell me what that means.
Yeah.
I think my name's. I apologize. I didn't see that. It was a little while ago. So if I had noticed it while we were talking, it might have made more sense. I'm sorry. You can post a regular chat and I'll read it. So you said you didn't see as many kids that were having the gender problem.
No. So
right?
That wasn't what drove me over the edge. And actually, I did have one trans student about maybe my first 3 years of teaching. It was a male to female. And most back then, especially before this last 10 years, were male to females. In fact, it's completely switched. Now it's more female to males.
Female to male.
And I was protective of that kid, because it was this really sweet child. And I was actually long-term sub for a nursing program, like for people that want to be nurses. And that teen came up to me and was like, Miss Fontanilla, do you think that I should get a sex change? And I said, no. I said, don't do it. And because there's a lot of male to female, when they get that sex change, that crazy surgery, it actually makes them more suicidal, because you're taking away their organs that are producing all the male hormones that make them feel good. And so I was, those kids are really, when you actually get around the kids, like there's my collective voice. This needs to stop. This is dumb. This is horrible. Why are we doing this? But then there's how I deal with kids one-on-one. And those kids are just hurting. They're just hurting.
Well, and that's the thing is like, it's if there's certain people that like make sense to me. You have folks like Blair White as an example, who, knew very young, transitioned over time, is not one of these radical people. Like, she did the facial reconstruction. She's like really trying to be a girl.
But she calls herself a trans. She says trans, and she doesn't want people to actually, or he, or whatever it is, doesn't want people to actually say, we can say that about. She won't get it, or he won't get insulted if we call him a he, right?
Well, and that's exactly, because Blair knows that Blair is not a female.
That's a choice
biologically.
That's a choice. That's a choice.
And so, like, that person is sincere, is legit, and Blair says, I knew, and it was a thing, and I went to counseling and all this stuff. But a lot of this other stuff that's going on nowadays, it's just like, there is no counseling, there is no consideration, there is no waiting. You don't even have to try to pass. You're just doing wild nonsense. It literally is like lost children with no purpose, who are listless, who have been raised in government schools, not taught right from wrong, not taught that there is objective truth. Of course they're insane.
Yeah.
What else would you expect? And then, just pick your gender and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Now, if I feel alone and lonely, and I see that this group over here is being applauded, praised, given special favor, etc., why wouldn't you go do that? try to be a part of that group.
Of course. And there's so much acceptance in that group. There just is. They get into it and they're just like, you're here, and it's us against them. And whenever it's us against them, there really is like, and that's why we actually lost the race way back when I was in high school, when they started having rainbow clubs, because and America just allowed this to happen. They had it in my high school. I'm class of 2000, and there was a rainbow club that met after school. And it's like, what is that club really? It's a club that meets about the sexuality of young people with a teacher. And that's just not appropriate in general. That's not appropriate in general to be doing in our public schools. Imagine this is a scenario that I always talk to parents about. If you had a neighbor and you let your kids go over to that neighbor's house, which first of all, we don't really do that anymore, because especially if the neighbor
afraid of everybody
doesn't have kids, and you don't play with that kid doesn't play with the neighbor's kids, right? It's just some neighbor, right? And that kid comes home to you and says, hey, I was talking with so-and-so about my gender identity and my sexual orientation. And we were having candid conversations about how to make it easier.
That person would get, they'd be reported as a pedo.
Exactly. And so but we're allowing this to happen with our teachers. Teachers are not a special population trained to deal with this stuff.
Dude,
teachers actually have a very high rate of harming our children. There's a lot of teachers that aren't being appropriate with kids.
I just feel like if somebody said to me, hey, I want you to talk to elementary school kids about sex, I'd be like, no, bruh.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you think so many teachers are just going along with it?
There's this narrative that parents aren't doing it, so we need to do it. Parents aren't being inclusive enough with their kids. They're not your kids. And parents aren't perfect, sure. But the government is not supposed to step in and be parent number 2. That's not the way this country's set up. And if you go back to the history of education, the history of our public educational system, that's in and of itself is a mess. So, but we do not co-parent with the government. And that is what has happened this last, 50, 60 years, as the government decided we do a better job at teaching about sex to kids than adults. And this is what I want to tell the parents in the audience right now, or who are listening. You have to be the ones to start that conversation with your child. And I know it's hard and I know it's uncomfortable, but there's a lot of resources out there that you can look up. How do I talk to my kids about the birds and bees and about all of this stuff? Because the reality is these kids are being exposed to it at a younger and younger age. And you need to be the one that is telling your child about this and how to navigate it, and also how to have boundaries with these other adults that are trying to guide them into their sexuality. You need to make sure that child knows to tell you right away if a teacher is starting to groom them like that, or another adult.
Yeah. I think that's, I love the way that you put that, because that is something we used to talk to our kids about. And just because it's a person in an authority position does not make it okay. And I think that is one of the things that is so scary, is that these people have been given this level of authority that is so undeserved.
Yeah.
And oh my God, we don't co-parent with the government. Oh my God, girl, that made me want to throw up.
Yes.
That is like, those words should not go together. For goodness sakes, golly, this is the same government that performed the Tuskegee experiments.
Yes.
And put Asian people in internment camps. And I mean, like,
that's protecting pedophiles. Hello.
Oh my God.
Like right currently. Like
oh my gosh. Yes.
They don't care about your kids. And this is the thing. I think the problem is that parents, one of the hardest things about being a parent is how fast your child grows up. And I saw it firsthand as a middle school teacher. They come in as these innocent little bubbly kids, 6th graders, because my middle school 6th to 8th grade. And they're just these cute. And then by the time they leave 8th grade, they're like, bye, Miss Fontanilla. And it's like, I'm the same person. The only way I've changed is I have 3 extra gray hairs, and this kid grew up in 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so kids grow up really fast. And you know them better than anyone else. You know the time to have these conversations, but just know they're going to get it younger and younger. And a lot of these blue states are passing laws for sex ed K through 12.
Oh my
And it's
God, that
not
is
this,
so
it's not just
disgusting.
teaching them how to take care of their bodies or no zones. It's crazy stuff like teaching them the multiple genders and the gender unicorn.
Oh yeah.
And
That's
yeah,
what there was one uh my I won't say who told me this, but one class in Vermont, they were actually recommending anal sex instead of vaginal sex to avoid pregnancy.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
It's crazy.
that is like, you can hurt each other. That is like, oh my God. Like, what kind of sick? That's when you know people are just sick. Oh,
Well, it started
we're
with,
not going to teach them abstinence and
yeah.
responsibility. We're going to teach them to
So
sodomize each other.
in the 50s, so sex ed actually came from World War II when our soldiers were overseas and they were getting venereal diseases because there was prostitute, what are they called? Homes, the places where brothels
Brothels,
around the soldiers' bases. Okay.
right?
And they were catching really high venereal disease rates. So this is when the government actually hired a nonprofit agency, I forget the name, to go and educate the soldiers on how to protect themselves. And
Oh my
that was
God.
the original sex ed. And this agency actually was really smart in the way that they cleaned it up. So what they did is they did an incentive to shut down all the brothels. They gave the soldiers other activities to do. So they opened up like rec centers for soldiers to go and
Oh,
watch
yep.
movies and go and get entertained and have, music and ping pong and all of this stuff. So they gave them more things to do besides go to the brothels. They also taught the soldiers how to be good husbands. So it was a lot of family planning and
Interesting.
reminding them how to be a good husband and a good to their wives. And it dropped the venereal disease rate by like 90%. And this was called family planning sex ed. And this is what was taught in our schools until the 60s and 70s. So they brought this back to America and they started teaching kids family planning sex ed. And then another nonprofit called SECUS came in the 60s and 70s, and these people were sick. They were basically this, they were like, the family planning is archaic. The 60s, the sexual revolution was happening, which actually wasn't that bad. You hear about the sexual revolution, you're like, yeah, everyone was having sex. It was like, I think 20% of women were having sex outside of marriage. We were still very
That's
chaste.
very low.
Yeah,
Yeah.
chaste during that time. It's actually now when most women aren't having sex, like it's
Yeah. Very
much,
few
yeah. And it's
people are
because of
virgins
what
when
they
they get
did
married.
in the 60s and 70s with sex ed. And
That
so
is
they came
wild.
in and they said, you know what? We need to stop teaching kids that sex should be within the confines of marriage. We need to make it normal for kids to know that it's fine outside, it's fine inside, whatever you want to do. And that's when this new sex education started happening. And
Oh
that's
my
actually what
God.
is taught to our kids now. And they've done studies on kids that get out of sex ed, and about a good percentage of them say they feel pressured to have sex. And you know what's funny is that we still have a chaste teen generation. In fact, they're more chaste than they were in the 90s because they're
Yeah.
so antisocial.
Yeah. Well, they're also
Yeah.
seeing what a bunch of thoughts
Yes.
everybody is and what the
Exactly. And,
consequences of
there's
that.
like a new revolution of these young people who are like, I don't want to do all that. I want to
Yeah.
save myself. It's almost cool now, which I'm loving that about Gen Z. They're kind of rebelling against all of they're like, I don't want that. And yeah, it's pretty much we've let a lot come into our country that has really
It's
messed up
just
our young people. Yeah.
outrageous. Okay, so hold on, Kali. So I keep trying to ask you, and then we get started
Yeah.
talking about other stuff
Uh-huh.
because this is so fascinating. You have
Yeah.
so much knowledge of history and how this has gone and the craziness. This is so fascinating to me. So I'm going to try not to interrupt you this time with questions about your. I love your brain. So what was the last straw?
So for me, it was really it was COVID. It was the shutting down of the schools, because I was really good at protecting my students. Like, I was getting sent lessons on Black Lives Matter, and they were comparing Black Lives Matter to the civil rights movement. And they were in the lesson, this was for my homeroom. In the lesson, there was a line where it said, if you don't support Black Lives Matter, you would not have supported the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s. Yeah, I'm glad you're laughing at that, because it's very laughable. And so I just didn't even teach the lesson. I had tenure. I had a really good reputation in my district. So there was often times where I would skip over the woke nonsense that they were trying to force on my students. So I was kind of a good barrier for them, because my job was to make sure they know how to read and write and speak in clear sentences. Okay. It wasn't to make sure that they were little woke activists. And so I was very good about protecting them from it. And then I started posting those lessons online to kind of expose what's going on. And I had a Facebook page that was more anonymous. It just went by Kali Eitz, which is my middle name. And so I was able to kind of post some stuff online, and I had a private Facebook. And then, but it really was COVID and the shutting down for a year and 2 months of my district. And I did not sign up. Yeah, I did not sign up to be a teacher online. Yeah. And then when we did come back, they wanted us to wear masks, and I got a medical exemption to not come back because I refused to teach in a mask. I teach English learners, yes. And I didn't want to enforce it either.
So this is one of the things. A client of mine was I'm not sure what the right word is, but she helps kids with like dyslexia and other learning disabilities. She helps them basically manage it or get over it or whatever. And she said, this was when it very first started. She goes, do you know how much damage this is going to do to children? Because you have to be able to see someone's mouth moving. Like, it helps with language formation. She was like, all these kids are going to be behind. I mean, she was calling it before, in the first 2 weeks of the lockdown.
A lot of us were saying it, but we were getting silenced and shamed, just shamed. And this is when everyone was wearing cloth masks. Everyone was wearing cloth masks. And those are like completely ineffective. They don't do anything. I mean, you can say that now because even the CDC has admitted that. And correct. And it just was a joke. And it was so controlling too. And I didn't want to go into there was no way I was going to force a student to wear a mask. Never, no way. Right. And so I got a medical exemption to not come back. I continued to teach online. In fact, they gave the students an option to come back to class. It was like the school opened 2 months before the end of the school year, which was so stupid. And they gave the students the option to come back. I had 2 students come back to my class. The rest of us just stayed online. And then they hired a sub to sit in the class with the 2 students that were in the classroom. And I taught online while the sub was in the class with the 2 students. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And then I quit.
Was it? Yeah. How hard was it to teach that stuff, like writing and reading online?
You know what? I figured it out pretty quickly, and my students did really well. My students actually, it's amazing.
Because you actually cared and showed up.
And we got some really good routines, and I found some really good resources to teach online really well. And I cut all the crap. What's funny about teaching is that I would say half of it is just busy work. And because our schedule was reduced, I really had a concentrated time with my students, and they did really well. At first, I wasn't that great, but by my full year that I taught online, my students did really well. So,
you have
not
developed
all kids like that. Not all teachers had that experience.
Right. But that says a lot about you, and probably says a lot about the classwork that you've developed. Now you saw the problem with the public school system, you saw that, and you decided to pivot and you created your own curriculum.
Yeah. So now from that experience, I created an online school. And what's great about our school is that the students can get it done in about 3 hours. They have work they have to do outside of being online. They have projects they need to do, which is good because I don't want them sitting on the computer the whole time. But what's great, there are some advantages to online because they do get access to some of the best teachers. Not the teacher that's in front of you in person is necessarily the best teacher, but maybe an online teacher who's one of the best in the nation but isn't in your area can teach your kid. Like
So
my,
now it's like
yeah,
people have access that they wouldn't normally have. They're stuck with whoever is at their school.
exactly,
Basically.
exactly.
Okay.
And so there's some advantages to it. And it's also a chance for parents who don't necessarily want to be their child's teacher, but want to homeschool. That's the other great thing about having an online school is that you now have a place for your kid to go to school, but it's at home with you monitoring and you being able to see what's being taught to your child.
I love that because there are some school districts that are actually trying to ban parents from being able to either observe the classroom, see what the curriculum is. I mean, I can't even fathom that.
Yeah.
What are you hiding?
Yeah. And there is a lot to hide. These teachers are getting away with a lot with the doors being closed. They are. And it's even in states where they've passed like ban CRT laws or laws where critical race theory, there you can't control what's going on in that classroom. You really
Well,
can't.
and you have to, I know what is required of teachers to get their teaching license.
Yeah.
You have to talk about how you're going to decolonize your classroom to get your teaching license.
Yes, exactly.
So even if you aren't indoctrinated, you still have to, you have to still do the dance for the, licensing, whoever does the licensing to get to be a teacher. So they're teaching teachers to be like this.
Yes. And that's the problem. All of our golden teachers that we had as when we were growing up, they've all retired. They've all left. And now we have this new generation of young teachers coming in that have been radicalized by their leftism and by their colleges, and they are on a mission to indoctrinate your child. And that's who we see on Libs of TikTok. They're all under 40. You don't see like a 60-year-old woman being like, "Hi, I'm a they, them. I'm Mix Frankenson. No longer a miss. I go by Mix." You don't, it's always like a 30-year-old teacher. It's very, very rare you see someone in their 50s and 60s doing that.
Okay, so where can they go to learn more about your curriculum, about your school? Like, where can they go get that information?
Sure. It's at thinkexodus.org, and it's a K through 12 fully accredited school. Again, that's thinkexodus.org. And if you are in a school choice state, we can take vouchers. So it could be free for you, especially in Florida and Arizona. Yes. I don't advertise it enough. I am not a businesswoman. I am not a social media person. That's something I'm working on this year.
Girl, you gotta call me. That's what we do.
Yes.
So we do. So for folks who don't know, I do politics. It's my greatest passion, but I have a background in accounting, and we do operations management for startups. And so we'll have to talk offline.
Yeah.
Because
our school, my school is scalable to thousands of kids.
That
Yeah.
is amazing.
I know. And I just have it. I rarely even advertise it on my own platform, which is fairly large, especially since the last time we talked. And I'm just not good at it. I don't know why. I'm not a businesswoman, but it's a ministry. And so I need to get over that. But
and it is, here's the deal, like real talk, as a person who's been helping businesses run their businesses for like 25 years, if like first of all, not everyone has the gift of administration. And that's real. And also you're a good teacher. Okay. Yeah. Why would you think that you would also be able to be good at everything else easily without like having to work as hard as you had to work to become a teacher?
Exactly. That's true.
That's true. I argue with my clients all the time. They're like, people will come to me and they're so embarrassed and ashamed that their bookkeeping is a mess and they haven't filed taxes in 3 years. And I'm like, I went to college for this. Like, what? No, you're not supposed to be good at it. You're an architect, or you're a teacher, or so don't beat yourself up.
Thank you. Okay.
Do not beat yourself up.
That's good advice.
Do not beat yourself up, because that is just the enemy trying to take your win. Okay. And that's the thing, is that we're surrounded by losses all of the time, right? Like if you get online, and if you're terminally online like I am, you just see losses everywhere, right? And it's easy to let that sort of to feel defeated and to miss our own wins, And that's what the enemy comes to lie, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
And so I'm just speaking into you and your ministry right now, Kali. Like, you have the opportunity to change lives, to change families, to change generational curses. Like, what a gift you have to offer. I love it. And this is what people need right now, right? We need to get those kids out of government schools, get them home raised by their parents, and you're making that possible.
Yes.
What a gift.
Yes.
What a blessing. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is so cool. Okay. Now, okay. So I try to keep it to an hour,
Yeah.
right? Because I
Yeah.
know you said, 9 o'clock is past your bedtime.
It's past my bra hours.
I laughed so hard when I read that. I was like, I totally relate to that.
Yes. It's just like,
I
I
totally
still have it
relate to
on.
that.
I'm not very happy.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So now tell the viewers, okay, so we talked about the school. Where can they follow you on social media? How can they support you? Like, what are all the links?
So just find me at Kali Fontanilla, Kali Fontanilla. I'm on all of the major social media platforms, and share about my school, thinkexodus.org. We do take donations if you feel called to donate to our school, but most importantly, I need prayer. I've had a really hard year, probably the hardest year in 15 years this last year. And I'm just getting out of it. And I actually haven't done interviews. I've stopped doing interviews for the past 4 or 5 months. And this is my first real long interview back. And yeah, just prayers for us. If you're a praying person, just say a prayer for us. My husband and I, we run the school, but also just for me to stay strong, because I definitely was weakened this year. But at the same time, I think it's good to remind yourself that you can't take on all the problems of the world, and you need God's support and God's help. You need God to take over, and that's what I need. But Satan was also trying to take me out, like my voice. And I almost shut down all my social media at the peak of its growing really fast. I almost shut it all down. Yeah. And my husband was the one that was like, no, you can't do that, because that's how we make our money now. Because that's how we get the leads for our school. So,
Yeah.
But, yeah. And I just was like, this isn't for me. I hate it. I just want to cook. I just want to, I was like, I just want a job making beds. I just want something that doesn't require any head work. Just, I'll scrub pots and pans.
Yes.
That's what I want.
I told my husband, I was like, you just become a famous filmmaker, and then I just get to stay home and cook
there isn't
and take
room
care
for
of the
that.
house.
We don't have time for that. We can't do that right now. We can do that when we get to heaven, but right now we have to be on the front lines, and it's not easy. And we have to take care of our health. So everyone out there, please make sure you're doing what you need to do. Take care of your health, because we need people that are on the right side to be strong. And if you're focusing on mental and physical and spiritual health issues, it's really hard to be fighting for this country and to know and to fulfill the mission that you're supposed to be doing. So prayers, very much appreciated.
I love it. I love it. Be the light on top of the hill, y'all. That is what we are called to be. And so, Kali, I just want to thank you so much for being with me today. It has been I have loved catching up with you and getting to share your story. You are I was so excited to see you at AmFest this year. All right, you guys, go check her out. Go check out her social media. As always, if you got something out of this video, if it enriched your life, make sure to leave a like or a thumbs up or a rumble or whatever platform you're on. Share it with somebody that you think would benefit from hearing Kali's story. Do you know a teacher, an educator, an administrator who could use to stand to have a laugh and be uplifted and to know that they're not alone? Share this video with them. Let them know that there is hope, that there are other options, and that there are people who believe just like they do. And so go be well. Happy New Year, y'all. And you know what? Since we've got some of your viewers on, I'm gonna close out today with the commercial for our book called Reasons to Trust the Government. So y'all hang tight, and if you want a good laugh, then here you go.
This book will give you wings!
What kind of wings?
Not like Icarus wings, like eagle's wings!
What about dragons?
You'll have dragon's blood! You'll be able to breathe fire!
Fire like the Ultra Eagle Dragogon!
This book will make you smarter!
Yes!
I'm not just talking honor roll smart, I'm talking Nikola Tesla smart! You'll be so good looking, Brad Pitt will be jealous!
Do you want to make money?
How much money?
Elon Musk money.
That's a lot of money!
People will think you're Elon Musk, but you're not Elon Musk, but they'll think you're
Elon Musk, because you pay taxes like Elon Musk!
And you have to argue with Elizabeth Warren because she thinks you're Elon Musk. Do you want freedom?
How much freedom?
All the freedom. One to America. How much freedom do you want?
America!
Double America! Yeah!